Chapter 3, The Night Wanderer. Tiffany sat in her room. Well, what had been her room and now would belong to some stranger from Europe, while she wasted away her existence 12 feet below and sulked. School sucked. Life in this house sucked. The only shining light was her new relationship with Tony Banks. She even liked his name, Tony B, she sometimes called him. Whatever damage being forced to sleep in the basement caused Tiffany, Tony was sure to be able to make her feel better. He always did. He would tell her stories of the places he'd been with his parents. Florida sounded so exotic. He talked about his plans for the future and possibly theirs. While most of the guys on the reserve thought the future meant just this coming weekend, Tony provided the umbrella that shielded her from the dark cloud hanging over her house. Tiffany would have to figure out something special to do on their 1-month anniversary coming up this Thursday. What would be a decent 1-month anniversary present? Some native moccasins? Too expensive. Or something white people might like stationery maybe. Too boring. She would have to think about it. While she pondered the idea carefully, ignoring the history book on the pillow in front of her, she massaged her tender, blistered feet. Tiffany applied some lotion on them in vain hope it would keep the swelling down. Her feet were big enough already. She rubbed the lotion deep between her toes. Tiffany felt the shiny silver bracelet on her wrist slide down to the base of her hand. She loved that bracelet. Tony had given it to her just a week ago. It was his first present to her. Therefore, it was the best present in the world. It fit perfectly and it looked kind of classy. And Tiffany had decided she liked classy. 1 month. It had only been 1 month since they had started going out. Of course, she'd seen Tony around school for the last 4 years, but it was about a month ago that carburetors and Weka root brought them together. When Tiffany shifted position and began massaging her other foot, the forgotten history book fell off the bed. It hit the floor with a thud, forcing Tiffany back to reality. Somehow it had remained open on the page she was supposed to be reading. Something about the fur trade. The topic appealed to her about as much as the ancient mangy furs she'd seen in the local museum. All this fur trading stuff happened so long ago. What possible relevance could it have in her life now? History teachers seemed obsessed with the topic. Those days were long gone. And though she was proud of her native heritage, she found the annual powwow events quite culturally satisfying enough, thank you very much. The thought of herself in a buckskin dress, skinning a beaver, almost made her laugh and throw up at the same time. But while she wasn't particularly fond of buckskin, Tiffany did have a love for leather jackets. If there was only something called the Versace trade. Where was she? Oh yeah, remembering her first days with Tony B. The thing she remembered the most was his astonishment over her status card when it came time for paying for things. During one of their early dates, he had picked up a present for his mother's birthday at a store downtown. They window shopped for about 20 minutes before they both decided on a bottle of Alfred Sung perfume. As the clerk was about to ring in the purchase, Tiffany got an idea. It would be a favor for Tony, quickly whispering into his ear, suggesting that they use her status card. Status natives don't pay sales tax, she explained. It was some treaty thing, she assumed. It was only a few bucks, but every little bit helped. Tony agreed, and Tiffany whipped out her card. Technically, only she was supposed to use it, and only for goods going directly to the reserve. But some merchants close to the reserve turned a blind eye. A sale was a sale, and the tax doesn't come out of their pockets. So Tiffany and Tony walked out of the store with the perfume, and he had a whole new appreciation for her abilities. He would have to remember this, he joked. Evidently, it was one of the fringe benefits of being First Nations. Her feet properly cared for, Tiffany began to absentmindedly flip through the history book. She had some big tests coming up, and try as she might, okay, she didn't try that hard, but promised herself she would try harder, she just couldn't get into it. She came upon an artist's rendition of an old-fashioned Indians hanging over a pile of furs. to some bizarrely dressed merchants in exchange for a rifle. Tiffany tried to find herself or even her father or grandfather in that picture, in those faces of those Indians, but she couldn't. The image in the book had about as much in common with her life as the carvings on the wall of King Tut's tomb with modern Egyptians. Though those pictures had been carved by actual Egyptians, these ones had been drawn by Europeans, and native people looked like demented savages. They weren't the people she knew or had heard about. Therefore, why should she care? Bored, she closed the book and put it to the side. Once more, the bracelet dangled on her wrist, taking her mind back to Tony. It wasn't long before Tony started driving Tiffany home, usually because she would miss the bus after meeting up with him after school. This also did not help her grades, but all great love demanded sacrifice. Tony or trigonometry? Not exactly the hardest decision she had ever made. Pretty soon he treated her at every McDonald's within an hour's drive of the school, not to mention all the better Taco Bells and Tim Hortons. They would drive down the lake, through the woods, over the drumlins that were scattered all through the country, and to places the school bus had never taken her. In the next few weeks, they saw each other about 3 to 4 times a week. Sometimes they would just hang out watching television. Other times, they would go up to the bluff and look over the Bay Meadow. It was a small, mostly white town where their school was located. Occasionally, they would go shopping. One day, when they were both picking up some jeans at a discount store, she once more offered to use her status card for him. "I shouldn't really be doing this. We're told not to, but hey, what's a friend for?" said Tiffany. She almost said girlfriend, but had caught herself. Later that evening, Tiffany told Darla about her Tony favors. "Oh, not you too," was Darla's response. "Some people will take advantage of you for doing that." Even though she was on the phone, Tiffany shook her head. Tony wouldn't. Do you know how many white people do things like that? I got cousins who bought things as a favor, and it was for friends who wanted them just because they could get the taxes off things. You should be careful, Tiffany. You're just jealous that I got a boyfriend and you don't, was Tiffany's well-thought-out response. I got a boyfriend. Well, mine's got a car, and yours has a police record. Annoyed, Tiffany hung up. Almost like that. It was a game of sorts. Tony kept buying things when he was with her. At first, Tiffany was pleased that she could help out, but slowly she became more and more uncomfortable. Those feelings hit their max 7 days ago when they were out for a drive after school. Tony had turned left onto Stomach Street and parked by Reynolds Jewelry Store. "Come on, there's something I want to show you." And with that, they entered the shop. Once inside, Tiffany's breath was taken away. Rings, watches, necklaces, pendants, bracelets, and everything else, way too gorgeous and expensive for a girl from Otter Lake, beckoned her. Granny Ruth had an old pearl necklace, and her father had his wedding ring, and now stored in the back of his sock drawer. But this was amazing. Tony knew exactly what he wanted. He went to the glass case at the back of the store and pointed down to a row of bracelets. That one, he indicated, a lovely interwoven bracelet that looked like real silver, right beside a gold one. Tiffany was speechless. Tony took his baseball cap off and waved down the store owner. "Could we see that one, please?" The man took it out and placed it on Tiffany's wrist. It was cold to the touch, but it looked perfect and pretty. "I love it," she said without looking up. "It's yours. We'll take it." Tiffany was so happy. Her first serious gift from a boy. Darla and Kim, her second best friend, will just die, she thought. Then she noticed Tony looking at the bracelet on her wrist. She thought something was wrong. "What is it? You don't like it?" she asked hesitantly. "No, in fact, just the opposite. My mother would love one just like it. It's her birthday next week, and I thought we picked out that perfume." Tony shook his head. "I was in the room the other day and I noticed she already has a full bottle, so I took it back. I know it might be kind of tacky, but I think I'll get the other one for her, the gold one, if it's okay with you. What do you think?" He looked at her expectantly, and for a moment Tiffany didn't know what to say. Sure, I guess." The whole thing seemed kind of weird, picking out nearly identical bracelets for his girlfriend and his mother. But maybe white people do that kind of thing. Thanks, Tony. Had the jeweler grab the second bracelet, and all three went to the cash register. Tiffany, It just took a moment for Tiffany to come back to reality when she saw Tony standing by the cash register, waiting patiently, and the jeweler doing the same. She realized he was waiting for something, for her. Tony was waiting for her to whip out her status card. Reluctantly, she took it out and presented it to the jeweler. He did not look impressed. You know, you're only supposed to use this to buy your own stuff. Tiffany looked embarrassed, and Tony came to her rescue, kind of. Look, this stuff's going back to the reserve, right? The man nodded. Well, that's a little too feminine for me. Trust me, it's going back to the reserve. You still get your money, don't you? There was an awkward pause before the jeweler grumbled and rung it in. On the way back to the car, Tony seemed happy, but Tiffany wasn't. As they got into Tony's car, he asked, "What's wrong?" "Tony, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think it's right." "Don't think what's right?" "Using my status card. If it's all right with you, I don't want to keep getting tax-free things for you. Once or twice was okay, but geez." Tony laughed a little self-consciously. "Yeah, I have been going pretty nuts, haven't I? Sorry about that. Won't happen again, I promise." And with that, Tiffany's day was saved. "Okay," he added, "let's get you home." They drove off, ironically, into the sunset. It was the last thought Tiffany had as she slowly and happily drifted off into sleep, curled up on the bed, the bracelet still comfortably wrapped around her small wrist, the history book tossed on the floor at the foot of the bed near her dirty laundry, and her feet smelling of the lotion her grandmother had bought, unknown to Tiffany, at Walmart.